Good morning and welcome to the Brick by Brick podcast with Ronald Pauleus. It's the new year and I have a new guest, my first one for 2025. I'm excited to have her. I actually met her on a Day with Pace back in 2024. She did a live interview with him and I heard a little bit about her story. So I'm glad to have her to share some today. Ella Ray, welcome. Thanks for being on here this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I get to be the first guest of 2025. I'm so honored.
Yeah. Starting the year with a bang.
Yes, of course.
Ella Ray, my listeners, this is their first time hearing of you, most likely. And tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do currently, and let's go from there.
Sure. So, I am a transaction coordinator. I focus specifically on creative finance transactions in the real estate space. And I've been doing this for 2 years now. I do about 20 to 30 transactions a month.
Wow.
So, you can say I'm super well versed in this.
Wow.
Uh, I started in real estate trying to be a wholesaler and doing direct to seller, but that didn't really work out for me. So, using my background as an executive assistant, I came in upon, the avatar of TC, transaction coordinator. And, paperwork has always been my thing. I was trying to
Mhm.
get away from it because I didn't want to, just go back from being an EA to a TC. But, after I tried it and I did a few deals, I realized that this was like my superpower.
Mm.
So I just, hit the ground running. And I've been a TC for 2 years now and sub two for 2.5 years now. And that was really my first intro to real estate, at least from this perspective. So it's
Yeah,
been quite a journey for sure.
nice, nice. So you said you started doing TC work 2 years ago. Would you break down just real briefly here what a TC does in a real estate
Sure.
transaction?
Sure. So, not every TC will do the same thing. So I'll just preface it by saying that, right? Some TCs will draft up contracts for you and not actually create the contract, but like fill in the contracts. Some
Mm,
TCs won't. I happen to be the one of the ones that do help you fill in the contracts. But essentially, it's from taking the deal from the seller saying yes to us closing, right? And either you
mm,
as the wholesaler getting your assignment fee or you as the buyer getting now your new property and everything that goes and to getting that to the closing table. So permit problems, title problems, finding heirs,
mm. Wow.
working with the title company to resolve those issues, right? And it's everything. It is everything. I deal with the title company, the realtors, the buyers, the sellers, the wholesalers, the attorneys, everybody. And it's sometimes you have to go on above and beyond, right? You have to talk to building departments about permits. You have to talk
Oh
to,
wow.
yeah, like I've had situations with code violations where I had to call code enforcement and find out who the inspector was and try to get him back out there. Like, there's just so many things that happen in these real estate transactions that people don't understand, and it's me taking that burden off of whoever's getting the contract, right? Because more than likely they don't understand that aspect of it. So also making sure that the paperwork is done correctly, making sure that the settlement statement is right. 9 times out of 10, I'm getting settlement statements and they're thousands and thousands of dollars off, sometimes 10, 20, $30,000.
Wow.
So even though it's not, people think that why do I need to pay a TC? I can do that on my own. And I can almost guarantee you that unless you've been doing this line of work, you're not really going to be able to do that on your own. Because
Mm.
there's just so many things you don't know, right? And you don't know that you don't know them.
Yep.
So, yeah, so that's
Yeah.
where, people end up finding out the hard way. And why go through that? Why not just have somebody carry that burden for you who knows what they're doing and can make the process super smooth for you? So that's my goal. Every deal I
Awesome.
go into, that's my goal. And I
Okay.
think that's what a good TC does. So,
Yeah. Almost sounds like you are the glue holding everything together. and
essentially.
making sure that it's held enough or long enough to the closing table, like
Yeah,
after
that
that.
exactly, that and herding cats, because
Oh,
it's just,
yeah.
follow up is key. Communication is key. I don't have a problem calling a title company 10 times in one day if I have to because I need
Oh.
some. So,
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
have to have that kind of
Oh,
personality. I was
wow.
born and raised in New York, like that's what I know.
Mm,
You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not difficult for me. my
Yeah.
my kind of my ideology on that is that if you know you're supposed to be doing something, you can't get mad at somebody who's expecting you to do it, right? So if a title
That's
company has a job to do,
good.
then they can't get mad at me for calling them, 5, 10 times a day. Like, hey, did we get this
Mm,
done? Did we get this done? What do we need to do? How can I help you? Let's facilitate this. Let's get this to the table already. So I think
yeah, that's solid.
that's a key component for a good TC, right? Is not being afraid to stir the pot, not being afraid of like people
Mm,
thinking that you're annoying, or
yeah,
just being like a bulldog, so to speak, right?
yeah.
It is what it is. It gets the job done.
Yeah.
Everybody at the end of the day is pleased. They're happy. It's great. I've developed wonderful relationships with my title companies. They actually
Mm,
love when I come on a file because they know that they don't have to do all this extra work that somebody's expecting them to do that's
yeah,
not theirs to do. Right.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, okay. I so you got the personality, you got the like you're not afraid to do what needs to be done so that everyone could win, right?
Exactly.
My question for you as my listeners are leaning in this conversation here is for this is this is essentially like you're an entrepreneur in your own way and you had to build this and you are still building this and we'll
Every
dig
day.
into that a
Yeah.
little bit later. What as an entrepreneur, like what mindsets did you have to overcome? Did you have to fight that you might even still be struggling with now, or maybe it may not be a strong struggle, but every now and then those mindsets come back. Like, what was that hurdle you had to get over? I mean, you're 2 years in, and it looks
Yeah.
like you're killing it. But I imagine at the beginning,
Yeah. It wasn't always that way. It
so
definitely wasn't
tell us
always
that
that way.
story.
So I think for me, the imposter syndrome was huge,
Mm,
right? Like, who am I
mm,
to be doing these people's contracts and paperwork, right? Even at the beginning, I wasn't even filling them out, but just knowing what I was looking at, right? Knowing what I needed
mm.
to translate to the title company. Knowing that I didn't really know too much about creative finance. I had been in sub two for about 6 months, and I just was one of those people who was constantly consuming. Just every
Mm,
Zoom that there was, every I was on there,
yeah, yeah.
and I started with the wholesaling, trying to do the DTS. I couldn't do it, but I always found myself drawn to these TC Zooms. I was learning a lot from there on the paperwork
Mm.
side. So I was like, you know what, let me just try this. And I had somebody come to me and they were like, can you do this for me? And I was like, sure, let's get it done. And in the back of my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it was a lot of, the who, not how, right? Like finding the people who were
Mm,
doing the thing, asking them the questions until I knew enough that I could just start carrying transactions on my own. But I think a mindset issue that I was struggling with was, again, like, who am I to be taking care of these transactions for people? Who am I that doesn't have any idea what's going on in this creative finance space to really take care of these transactions and make sure that they were getting done properly? And I think that that struggle has changed from who am I to what else can I do, right?
mm.
So I don't want to say I've mastered this, but I would say I'm very well versed and super seasoned at it. Of course there's still things that I don't know because every deal is different. You learn something new
Yeah.
every deal.
Yep, yep.
And you just take that and you build on it. But I feel that now that I've been doing these transactions for so long, I've found myself um doing a lot of direct to agent closings. right? So
Oh,
like people would get warm leads and they're like, the agent wants to find out more about sub two and how does it work. And who better to talk to agents than somebody who does this
mm,
on a day-to-day basis, right?
yeah.
So I'm able to explain sub two to them where they're comfortable enough saying, okay, send me a contract. So now I'm a closer, right?
Yeah.
So for
Wow.
me, it's like, man, I kind of want to spend some more time doing that, right? Getting some
Yeah.
wholesale deals. I mean, it'll probably take me like about 5 transactions to get one wholesale fee, right? So for me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to expand into that space, but I also know that that space is not permanent. So I kind of want to use that as a kind of like to propel me to the next thing that I want to do, which is owning properties, right? Because I don't own any yet.
Mm-hmm.
I've just, I've seen so many deals go sideways that it makes me nervous. Um, I'm really good at underwriting, or at least I think I am, because I've wholesaled several deals of my own that I've underwritten and then, were good deals. But when it comes to buying your own stuff, it's just a whole different animal. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, I know this is good enough for you to buy, but I don't know about
Yeah.
me, right? But ultimately I would like to do something with RV parks and mobile home parks.
Oh, okay.
And in co-living.
Mm,
So, the midterm rental space, maybe not so much. I don't know. I don't know about that. Airbnb is definitely not. Either long-term rental, co-living, mobile home parks, or RV parks. But now I am struggling with, okay, so I need to find the people who are doing that thing because I don't know how to underwrite those things, right? I know
yeah.
how to underwrite houses, but that's way different than underwriting co-living mobile home parks and
Yeah.
RV
Yeah.
parks, right?
Big time.
So that's my struggle is the mindset thing is jumping from one level to the next. Like, how do I get there?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, if you have the fortitude, because it's not an easy thing to work for yourself.
Yes. Yes.
I used to work 9 to 5 corporate America for, gosh, I don't know how many, 20 years. I was an executive assistant in Manhattan working for
No.
C-level execs, right?
Oh, wow.
CEOs, CLOs, COOs, you name it.
Mm,
And putting together board meetings from members of all over the world, right? Different companies,
wow.
bringing them
Yeah.
into Manhattan, like setting all that up. And I thought 9 to 5 was the way to go. Like that
Mm,
was it. You know what I mean? I
yeah.
was making like 100K, which was great at that time. And when I stopped working in corporate America, I had a construction company in New Jersey.
Oh.
And I was partnered up with someone who was doing stucco. So I opened up the company, they were doing the stucco work, and I was doing like all the back end stuff. And I
Wow.
learned a lot from there. And, it was great. I was like, I didn't even have to get dressed in the morning. Like I could be in my pajamas, like on
Yeah.
my computer. But there's a lot to be said for accountability for yourself and for discipline for yourself when
Mm,
you're in this line of work and you are the only one pushing yourself, right?
yes.
Um,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
never used to be one to wake up early in the morning and get dressed just to get dressed, right? But now I can't start my day without getting dressed, even if I'm not going anywhere. Every single day I'm at my computer, I'm already showered and dressed and ready
Yeah.
for
Ready.
whatever. Um, and you have to know that you just have to keep on doing the thing because eventually you just keep on chipping away brick by brick, like you said,
Mm. Hmm.
and building something. And if you keep at it long enough, people will get to know who you are. Put yourself in the right circles and be around the right people and the people that are doing the thing that you want to do, and you will grow. Like it's inevitable. You just can't. If you're not doing the work, it's going to be very difficult for you. So I think that's key. You just have to have the mental fortitude to stick with it.
Yeah.
So
The one thing there is that entrepreneurial, and if some people fall, some people,
yeah.
some people see the opportunity to rise to the occasion and they go back to that 9 to 5 because it's
Yeah.
safe,
Yeah.
right? You could get up at 8, you can shower, get ready, eat breakfast, leave at 8:30, make it to work at by 9, and you have
Mhm.
all these to-do lists and You know you're done at 5, you go home, you watch Netflix, whatever, you sit down.
Waste your life watching
Right? Waste
TV.
your life on the evening, right? Your 6 to midnight is wasting your life, your 9 to 5 is wasting your life. And then there are those who want better, who want more. You and I was a high school teacher a couple or this past year, and
Yeah.
I drove school buses 2 years ago. And for high school, I had to be there at 7:10, I believe it was. School started at 7:20, and so I got up at 6 something, just enough to eat something and go.
I go.
And done at 2 p.m. or 2:20 p.m. Went home, spent time with family, got ready for different church activities, yada yada.
Yeah.
Now, as an entrepreneur, I am getting up at 5 a.m. So and I don't have enough time to do all that I want to do before
Exactly.
I
Yes.
and
It's so
so
true.
it's it's that it's that tide that lifts you up, and it's like, okay, do I like go head on or do I
Mhm.
fall back?
Yeah.
And I've found that once you lean into those challenges, once you lead into that next level, it becomes easy because
Yes.
with everything, you do hard things. It's
Yes.
easier to do hard things.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. It's definitely easier to do hard things because now it's like to me, it's not a big deal, right? So I'm ready, and I think that's part of it is I've gotten so not comfortable, but so accustomed to
Mm,
this lifestyle that
mhm,
now I'm like, okay, what's next, right? And I'm finding
yeah.
myself, I'm in an owners club, and I have to say, it's been such a learning experience being in there because Pace will show us, Pace is one person, yet Pace is doing so much all the time,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't even know how he does it. And I'm
So
over here and I'm like,
same.
I have the same amount of time that he does. Why am
Yeah.
the only thing that I'm doing? I'm obviously doing something wrong. And I think it goes back to our conversation before we started recording was building up your team, right? Like you can't do
Mm,
this alone in the real estate space or in any entrepreneurial space. You cannot do it alone unless you're just doing something like maybe, I don't know, making bars of soap or something. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But in this space, you really need a network of people and you need a team behind you because that's the only way you're going to be able to excel and move on to those other levels. So that, the whole calendar thing, he's teaching us how to build out our calendars and what things to prioritize and what things are like non-negotiables and how to fit
Mm,
in money making activities and all this other, and
mhm.
it's like blowing my mind and I still haven't finished my assignment because I'm like, I need more income producing activities. What do I do now,
Uh,
right? So I think that's
yeah.
when I started with the No One Left Behind. He was saying something about these challenges that he puts together for us, for people in the community, to be able to work with people who are newer, right? Get them
Mm,
to do the calls, get them to send out the LOIs, get them to warm up the
mm,
agents, right? And then you talk to
yeah.
them and you start having like a funnel of leads coming in. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do that. And I think that's when I realized that I was like good with closing. I got a contract. I got two
Ah,
contracts on
see.
yesterday was Wednesday. On Tuesday night, right before New Year's Eve, I
Nice.
had three agents reach out to me telling me that they wanted me to submit an offer on properties that they thought this would be a good fit for. So I just
Yeah.
think, getting out of your comfort zone because I was like, yeah, I'm not talking to agents about trying to buy their properties. I did that already and it was
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
no
yeah,
bueno.
yeah.
No bueno, like too many bad conversations. Like, they were just not hearing it. But now I'm like talking to agents who are actually interested, and it makes such a difference,
Nice.
right? So, like, learning different ways of doing the same thing, right? Because I
Mm,
had tried
mhm.
that already. Learning how to leverage the community, learning how to leverage new relationships, right?
Yeah.
Finding the people who are doing the thing, I am lacking systems completely.
Mm,
I'm
you need
doing
an
20 to
integrator.
30 deals. I'm lacking deals completely. And it's gotten to the point where I'm like, this is making a huge impact on my business, right? So I
Mhm.
connected with somebody in the community yesterday. He's been a systems engineer for like 11 years. This guy's a genius.
Mm,
And he was able to help me. Like, we're talking about SOPs and
Yeah.
automations and system, like that thing,
Yeah, yeah.
that those things are huge.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
don't realize how much of an impact they have on your business until you actually start implementing them, right? But you have to sit there and you actually have to go through every single item in your business and every single process and get that dialed in so that you can start implementing. That's
Mm,
what's the repetitive thing. How do we fix that?
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
How do we save time on that? Me sending out an email every single time to the agent after we close the deal, hey, where are the keys? Or to the buyer, hey, can you
Yeah.
send me your corporate docs? Every single time I'm doing this. And it's like, if I could just have it on autopilot,
Yep.
what a difference it would make. Right.
Yeah,
So I
wow,
think, and that goes for any person with a, with a business like this. Um, so yeah,
that's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. I want to highlight a couple of things here for my listeners, just so they could get a little spotlight on them. You
Okay.
started this 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and you've been in the sub two community, sounds like 2.5 years.
Yes.
And so it looks like it kind of took you some time to find your way into the
Oh
TC
yeah.
space because you're trying to be a wholesaler, direct to seller, direct to agent, even sounds like.
Yes.
And so
Door
from
knocking. Let's not forget
oh,
that,
door
because I've
knocking.
tried that too.
Oh my,
I
that's
tried
not good
like so
now.
many different things.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were doing it then.
Yeah.
So for the listener who is listening to this in January, it's 2025, and
Mhm.
they're wanting to do something different. It's a new year. They want to challenge themselves. They want to provide more for their family. They want to go on a 1 month vacation like you did, and things are okay, right? It sounds like you're still doing work, but you are
Yeah.
doing work in a very beautiful place.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely was still doing work, but it was beautiful. You're right. Yes.
So for them, what what would you how can I phrase this? How do I know I'm a TC? Or how do I know I should try to be a TC?
Oh man. Or how do you know your DTS or DTA or
Yeah,
pre-foreclosures? And I think, and I'm speaking specifically to the people who what are in sub two or are just in the space or
they're
just
not in sub two.
um.
Most
So I'd say, instead of going home, if you have a 9 to 5, instead of going home and turning on the TV and turning on Netflix and doing this, try to maybe learn about different ways of making money. For me, it was I started because I was in a very bad relationship. It was a domestic violence situation,
mm,
and I spent 7 years, doing work for this man. Like, I built up his company, I was doing all the back end stuff, but now it was like, how do I make money? Right? Because he was my source of income. He was providing for me.
mm,
And I knew that I didn't want to stay in that situation and risk my well-being just because I was being provided for, right? That's a huge, and I'll be completely honest, that was a huge thing for me.
mm.
Um, so I just started YouTube.
Yeah.
How do you make money? How do you make money? Like, what do you do? And I came across this lady, Noelle. I don't remember her last name, but she would talk about subject two. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And of course, the algorithm takes what you're looking at, feeds you more videos of the same type.
Yep.
And I just started learning more and more, like, about things that I didn't even realize existed, right? Whatever the subject two thing was. I knew real
Yep.
estate was cool. I was in construction. I loved seeing these houses being built, and all of a sudden it's like this, you go from a wood frame to this beautiful 5,000 square foot
Yeah.
house with, like, slate roofs and all this other stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how do you get into that? Right. So of course my natural, I was kind of like compelled to learn more about that. And I think whatever your passion is, there's pretty much usually always something you can do around your passions, right?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, it was the entrepreneurial thing, because I'd been working for myself for 7 years. I didn't want to go back to corporate America. It really
Yeah.
wasn't appealing to me, but I knew I had to leave. So I came down to Florida. I had saved up some money while I was up there. I came down to Florida and I started working for someone remotely in the commercial real estate space. They were doing like commercial real estate underwriting, and I was the project manager sending out the deals to like all the underwriters and stuff. But at the same time, I was still feeding my mind with like all this real estate
Mm,
stuff.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I remember it clearly. It was August 22nd of 2022
Oh, wow.
that I had a call with the sub two people because I had, of course, you fill out the form.
Yeah.
You want the free contract, you want the free whatever, and
Yes.
then they have your information, right? So thank God because I spoke to them and I remember I was like, I'll just put it was they had payments at the time. So I was like,
Mm,
I'll
wow.
put, the money down on the card and do the payments every month. And I was trying and I was in there and I was trying to learn and it was like just feel like you're standing in front of a water hose. There's so much information being thrown at you, right? And even if you're not in the program and you're just, trying to figure this stuff out. And I think eventually I just tried each thing until I found something that fit. Because as you're starting, not everything you start to do is going to feel right. Not everything you know what I mean? It just doesn't stick, but you have to keep on doing it. You
Yeah.
can't just be like make one phone call and be like, that's it, I'm never gonna do
Yep.
that again.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
To
I
give yourself an honest try and an honest chance at trying to do something different, right? So I tried it. I tried the door knocking, the pre foreclosures. I tried the and in the Florida heat in the middle of the summer, I'm telling you,
uh,
that's not the thing to do.
yeah.
Was not the thing to do. I
Yeah.
tried the whole talking to the agents, and I remember getting so frustrated because it's like, why are you like, oh, send me an offer, and I'm like, or telling me, I'll let my client know about it, and I knew that they didn't understand it, and me being like, because I'm just super like type A, right, and very alpha, and I'm like, well, how are you going to explain it to them if you don't understand it yourself?
Yeah.
And like getting hung up on, because like that was not the route talking to the sellers, they'd have me on the phone for like an hour and a half, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I still get a no. That was not the route. And then I slowly but surely found my way into TC work, and it just kind of stuck, and I got really
Mm,
good at it. And people started like, people would come up to me at meetups, and I didn't even know who they were, but they knew who I was, and I was like, wow, that's crazy to me.
yeah.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like that little picture that I'm sure you've probably seen. It's like the guy, he's like digging, 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 and then
Mm,
he's about to stop, but you can see the gold right there. It's
yes.
kind of
Yes.
like that. Nothing's ever in this space, nothing's ever gonna come easy. And working for yourself, nothing's ever gonna come easy. And I think it's all about again, networking, right?
Mm,
Put yourself in those rooms. Do your local RIAs, do your whatever it is that you like.
big time.
But you have to have the drive. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. You just have to have the drive to want more for yourself and want and not to want to have to work for anybody else and not be complacent with that and get outside of your comfort zone. I think too many people are complacent with life and they just feel like, oh, I'm not going to leave my 9 to 5 because, that supports me and that. But it's the fear that stops them from doing the thing, right? Because they're afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
And unless you step off the boat, right, you're
Yes.
never going to know that you can walk on water, right? So I think it's important to really just believe in yourself too. So
Yeah. That's powerful. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. That I'm challenged on on this early morning. Hello,
Well,
Ray.
this is challenging for me too because I don't like being on camera and I don't like podcasts. So hey, we're
Hard
on the same
things.
boat, right?
You're doing hard things. So
That's it.
we're coming towards the end here, and I want to highlight your business. What are you looking for? You're growing. We were talking off air here, and you mentioned that you're wanting to grow a team. So you're in the phase of entrepreneurship where you're providing not just value for yourself, the clients you're working with, now you're providing jobs for other people to provide for their families.
Yeah.
What do you need? What are you looking for? How can listeners get a hold of you?
Um, so right now I think what I need and what I'm looking for, gosh, that's kind of difficult. I think what I need to do is I need to, like I was saying, put systems in place. I think
System.
that's the number one thing that I'm gonna need. And that will give me more time to do the other things that I want to do, which is start wholesaling a little bit more,
Mm, mhm.
and also eventually acquire an RV park or mobile home park or some properties for co-living. I'll probably start with the co-living properties.
Okay,
Um,
nice. In Florida?
you know, I have such mixed emotions about this, right? Like Florida's my backyard and it's great, especially since it would be my first time and I'd be able to, see what's going on. I know the areas better.
Yeah.
But these hurricanes,
Oh,
like they're scary, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, but I also like Texas because I know Texas is a hot market, but I've never been.
Mm,
So, either
yeah.
Florida or Texas. I mean, basically, I've always said Tennessee, Alabama, Texas, and Florida,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
I think
mhm.
there's some really hot markets there, right? You
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
Huntsville, you have Birmingham, you have Nashville, you have
Mhm.
Chattanooga, like
Yeah.
Texas, San Antonio, DFW, Houston,
Charlotte.
Austin.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and they're all, landlord friendly states
Yeah.
where you run into less problems if you need to, evict someone or foreclose on someone or whatever the case is. So I think looking for people who are doing things in those spaces,
Mm, mhm.
partnering up with them and learning more about them and how to acquire my own. As far as building my team goes, I mean, I have two people who are working with me now. I'm thinking I might look for a third one, just somebody maybe who's in sub two, who's
Yeah,
also like
definitely.
TC, because I think they're just in top tier, so they're missing that whole creative finance aspect of it, and
Yeah.
I'm having to bridge way more than I would want to.
Gotcha. Makes
So
sense.
I think maybe if I were to grow my team, it would be one more person, and it would be from sub two.
Yeah.
Um, which I haven't. I'm still 1 foot in, 1 foot out on that one, but I think I'm leaning more towards actually doing it because it'll help me a lot. And then I'm hoping. No, I'm not hoping. I'm setting a goal to acquire my first property. I would love for it to be in the first quarter, right?
Okay. 3 months.
So that's what, yeah. So that's what I'm giving myself because I need to start setting some very clear goals and what that
Yes.
looks like. And I know that that's one of them.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome.
So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. You already got a TC for the job.
Yeah, right?
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for giving us some of your time here. It's the most precious resource, precious
Yeah.
resource. And my listeners, I just want to highlight to y'all that she's essentially gotten to where she's at currently because she was inquisitive. She had different people she was working for, moved to different places to work for different people. But throughout it all, she was inquisitive, asking questions, doing her own homework, doing her own research.
And never taking no for an answer. That's important too.
Mm, never
That's
taking no
super
for an
important.
answer.
Yeah.
And then she finally took the dive, got into sub two, and tried many things. And I cannot emphasize enough how so many people, like she said, try things for a short time and then they're done.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like the illustration she gave, sometimes you're that close to breakthrough, you know,
Yes.
that close to something clicking and making sense, or connecting to the right person, or the habit sticking to where it's on autopilot now and you can learn something else.
Hmm.
That close, and then they quit. Let it not happen this year. Build your future brick by brick. Make the decisions, do the hard things, ask the questions, do the research. YouTube, I,
No.
if YouTube needs metrics on how many lives it's changed for good, because it's
It's
changed
true.
some lives for bad too. But how many lives it's changed for good because of how accessible information is. Of course, you got to filter things. Of course,
Yeah,
you got to make sure it's legal and it makes sense, yada yada. But
it's true.
I got into sub two because I was listening at pace on YouTube.
Yes, me
Is that
too.
the same for you?
Yeah, that was one of the things I was gonna say was, the algorithm kept pushing out these videos for real estate and I saw Jerry and I saw Brent
Mm-hmm.
Daniels and I
Yep.
saw Steve Trang and I but I kept on seeing Pace. And it was like Pace was the one person who was telling about all the different things.
Yes.
And I was like, you
Yes,
know
yes.
what? Let me just make this investment because I'm going to be here 5 years later and my life is going to be the same and I'm going to hate myself for it.
Hmm.
So let me take, and there were months I couldn't make the payments. I wasn't getting deals. It was like
Yeah.
Christmas of 2023, I want to say. Deal was about to close on Christmas Eve, and lady decides she walks away from the closing table. I tell you something like that was rough. It's rough. This
Yeah.
this business is not for the not for the weak of heart. Definitely
Yeah.
not. But yeah, yeah, it's definitely changed lives for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, but if anybody, you were asking me, and I forgot to say, like if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I'm
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram, at the underscore the real Ella Ray,
Okay.
and they can always reach out to me if they have any questions about deal structures, underwriting,
Mm-hmm.
TC work, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So would
Awesome.
be happy to.
And if they have a deal they want to bring to you to specifically TC, can they reach out to you on that Instagram or do you have another website?
I'm in the middle of rebranding,
Oh, okay.
so right now, yeah.
All right. We'll wait
So
to the
yeah, no,
reveal.
for now the Instagram is fine, and then well, I'll change it up eventually from there
Okay.
once I get the website and everything.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, do the hard work. You're listening to this. That's the first step. Inquisitive, asking the
Huge.
questions.
Yes.
And Socrates said this: the purpose of knowledge is action, not knowledge. What you've
Oh,
learned, what you've gathered from LRA, what you're soaking up on YouTube, start practicing, start doing,
implementing. Yes.
implementing, and
Yes.
watch. Your life will change one brick at a time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for giving us your time, LRA.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ron. I really appreciate it. It was great spending time with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. Guys, go do the things. Have a good rest of your week.